right, so everybody, thank you for joining us today for the July 22nd Board of Trustees meeting. If we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so first we'll start with public comment. If you'd like to come on up to the podium.
Oh.
My name is Mark Intockley. I live at 1550 Georgetown Drive. I'm a precinct delegate in Bloomfield Township, and I wanted to make some comments on item 6 and item 5. In item 6, you'll notice that the water and sewer fund reserves are now at $34 million if the unaudited statements hold out to be true. That's a huge increase. Therefore, hopefully the township will consider going back to the old rates. There's no reason for an increase in water and sewer rates, plus the $5 million in additional new net position. So that's number one. Number two, you'll also notice that water and sewer has approximately $20 million in marketable securities. So what is the investment income on those marketable securities? We see in the treasurer's report, the prior quarter, the township generated about $1.3 million. So of the $96 million total, what belonged to water and sewer. Also at the beginning of the financial year, it showed that in 2023, on March 31st, there were over $7 million in marketable securities. So there should be some interest income going into water and sewer. Based on those results, it appears to be a valid requirement. The other thing I noticed was this year's performance as well. Is water and sewer going to get interest income? Or and if they are, where's the cash going? Same would apply for public safety. They probably received about $26 million in tax revenue sometime around January or February. Should they have some interest income on their account as well? So hopefully these will be updated. In addition, additional statements not included in the report for item number 6 were provided by Clerk Brook, and I'm appreciative of him tracking down those records as well. So hopefully that'll be made available to the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from the public that wants to come on up and speak? No? Okay, we'll go ahead and close public comment. Next, we'll go to the board minutes of July 8th. Unless there's any changes, I'd look for a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Trustee Barnett, support by Trustee Murray. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That passes. Next, we'll go to consider the award of the 2024 JAM Roncelli Safety Path Program presented by Director Corey Almas.
Good evening, Board. Here to present the 2024 Safety Path Contract Award. The annual Safety Path Program once again consists of the new Safety Path construction, the Safety Path maintenance, clearing of vegetation, the Safety Path Repair Program, the Retaining Wall Repair Program, and the ADA Compliance Program. This is specific to the 2024 Safety Path Program along the west side of Telegraph Road from Humphrey, going through the Paper Road there, jogging back towards Mallard, up across Orchard Lake Road, and then going down the north side of Pontiac Drive and tying into and terminating at the Clinton River Trail. The scope of the work consists of about 3,011 feet of safety path from Humphrey to the Clinton River Trail. The decorative park style lighting was approved by the board on March 25, where we selected the decorative park style lamps. We received a total of 5 bids on July 15th, and Audia Concrete Construction Incorporated of Milford was the low bid in the amount of $647,101. And that was considerably below the engineer's estimate for this project. Reference provided satisfactory results for Audia, and therefore staff is making the following recommendation. I'd be happy to read it, but we've heard it before, I believe.
You read it, then one of them doesn't have to read it, though.
Would you like me to read it? Okay, all right.
Unless you want
Staff
to.
is moving to approve the bid and award the contract for the 2024 Roncelli Safety Path Program to Audia Concrete Construction, Inc. out of Milford, Michigan, and the not to exceed amount of $647,101, except that the Township Engineering and Environmental Services Department shall have the authority to approve up to 10% increase to said contract amount based on actual quantities needed to complete the project or conditions discovered in the field. If said conditions and or quantities are confirmed by the Township ESD and the Township's consulting engineers. Should the quantities need to complete the project or conditions discovered in the field increase the contract cost above 10% but less than 15%, the ESD shall obtain approval from the Township Supervisor prior to issuing approval of said contract amount. Additionally, should quantities needed to complete the project or conditions discovered in the field increase the contract cost above 15%, the ESD shall obtain approval from the Board of Trustees prior to issuing approval of said contract amount.
Any questions, discussion?
So this does include all that electrical underground as well as the overhead lighting that we picked.
Correct.
Perfect. And
That's
again,
yes, that cost is included in this amount.
and again, this was under almost 10 to 15% lower than what the engineer came back at. And we were able to verify their work. Everything was still good and up to satisfactory results from our engineers.
Correct.
That sounds like great news.
It is.
It is.
Very impressive.
Nice to hear
Thank you.
construction
Thank you.
coming under budget.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
So kudos to you guys for not only being able to get all this out there and get good bids, but get bids that were, under what we estimated, which is great news for the taxpayers.
Yeah, based on the bid tabs, there's contractors are being very aggressive at working in the township. I don't know the reason. I don't know if people want to work here or if there's less work out there to be had. And I don't believe it's the latter. So I think good things are happening here in the township, and contractors want to come here and give us their best.
I think we have good staff, and they probably want to work with the good staff.
I'm glad you said it.
I'm ready to make a motion unless anybody else has any questions.
No, I'll make a support on that.
Motion by, you want to make a motion by trustee Kalinsky, support by trustee Barnett. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That
I
does
just have a
pass.
quick question. I don't know if it's for you or Noah. There's a split rail fence on the west side of Lazar, south of Lone Pine, north of Quarton, that has been in disrepair for at least a year. And it needs attention immediately. It looks terrible. It's a really poor representation of the township, and hopefully we can attend to that and have it taken care of, because nothing's been done for over a year.
Yeah, I believe that segment is on our current retaining wall and fence repair program.
Good.
That contract is still underway. The fence is the last that they're going to be doing, so I believe that one's going to be taken
So we've taken care of this year.
This year.
Okay.
I'll confirm that, Neil, and thank you.
Okay,
Yep,
thank you.
Confirmed.
Thank you both.
Thank you, Corey. So next we have consider approval of delinquent water and sewer accounts resolution presented by Adam Roose, our Public Works Manager. Hello, Adam.
Good evening. So each year at this time, as directed by the Bloomfield Township Code of Ordinances, chapters 38-224 and 38-257, a roll of delinquent accounts is prepared for collection. A final bill and short letter are sent to each account that owes more than $100 and is more than 30 days in arrears. Recently, after these final letters have been sent to each delinquent account, approximately 35% of the account holders end up paying or making payment arrangements to correct the delinquency. That has left these last few years approximately $1 million in delinquent balances that are placed on the December tax roll if unpaid by March 1st. That will be then sent to Oakland County as delinquent, allowing Bloomfield Township to be made whole and transferring the collection responsibility to Oakland County. Attached in the packet was a resolution for the board to finalize the process.
Does anybody have any questions? If not, I look for a motion.
So moved.
Motion by trustee Kalinsky,
Support.
support by trustee Murray. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you.
That passes. Thank you, Adam. Next, we have our treasurer's quarterly report presented by treasurer Michael Schostak.
Thank you. So, as is my statutory responsibility, also in accordance with our investment policy, I have to present a report of the township's funds and investments each quarter. So this report is for the quarter ended June 30th, which was our first fiscal quarter of the year. You see in our operating funds, we had a meaningful decline, and that has to do with several large payments that were made. We had bond payments that we needed to make. We also prepaid the road commission for part of the village project, the reconstruction of their roads. Now that we have the bonds, of course, the bonds, we didn't get the money until July, so you don't see that in this balance, but you'll see it in next quarter's balance. That we prepaid to the road commission to get started on that construction project. For the quarter, we earned $970,000 in interest. Again, a bit of a decline from last quarter, but I would say that one of the biggest factors that allowed us to earn such a significant amount of interest was the fact that we were collecting tax money in that first quarter. You know, the tax bills were due February 14th. So for the first half of the quarter and even to the end of February, we were collecting tax money, and we get to hold that money for up to 10 business days before we have to pay it to the county and the city, or not the city, the school district, et cetera. And so we can earn that money on that float. And we're talking about a significant amount of money that we collect on taxes for other residents. Of course, we also get our township tax money in the winter tax roll. And so our high watermark for funds are always going to be the March 31 quarter, because we will have collected all of our township millages that we then draw down the rest of the year. Moving on to the other accounts, we have our pension plan and our retiree healthcare trust. We made payments at the end of the March quarter in cash from our general fund for our annual payments for the OPEB fund, and then we also made the extra payment, as you'll recall, for the pension fund. So that's sitting in cash at the end of March 31st. But we got that to work with also, we rebalanced the equities portfolio based on our investment policy, working with our FSC to rebalance the portfolio. So you'll see some like the small mid caps have a lot more money than the international. We reduced the exposure there. So that's a lot of the rebalancing that we did. And the same would apply to the Retiree Healthcare Benefits Trust. Again, we had the money in cash, $1.8 million at the end of March 31st quarter, and we put that to work the following quarter, the one that just ended in June 30th. And then the last section is our what I call participant directed investment accounts. This is all of our employees' 401as, which we have not. We don't have 401ks since we're government employees. We have 401as. And then we have a deferred compensation 457. So that is cash that is owned by employees and invested at their direction. So we set up the funds, and they go in just like any of you who have 401ks. You go in, you choose which funds you want to be invested in, and that's their resources. But even though it's not technically township money, I include that in here because we still do have oversight of that investment. So. The last I'll add, just for those that may be curious, the Dow Jones Industrial Average finished down 1.3% for the quarter, so that hurt some of our bigger stock names, our large cap companies. The S&P finished above 4%, and the NASDAQ was the big winner at 8.5%, driven mostly by NVIDIA, I think. So very tech focused was the quarter, and we don't have a ton of exposure to tech because of its variability. So I don't know. We didn't pick up a lot there, but I'll take any questions. And we'll have a financial sustainability committee and retired employees healthcare benefits trust meeting next week on August 1st, as we normally do at 7:30 in the morning. So, any other questions? Then I'm submitting this report.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Mike.
Next, we have considered the approval of the recommendation of the benefits and compensation study vendor, and I'll present this. Do you have the presentation, Sean? Did Sue send it to you?
I think
the next thing
is the FOIA.
Oh,
Number 6.
oh, I thought that was already filled. I'm sorry, I thought that. So next, we have considered the Freedom of Information Act FOIA of the record does not exist determination, and that will be Clerk Brook.
Great, thank you. Hi, everybody. In the packet, we have shared the FOIA request that came in and on June 24th and a response that was provided by my office on June 27th. And then an appeal was received on July 3rd. The appeal comes to the Board of Trustees according to statute and the township's FOIA policy. The board has 10 days to review that, 10 days from the date of its last board meeting, which makes that today. And so this item is on the agenda for us to discuss. Before discussing any further, this is a request from Mr. Antocoli, who is here with us today in the audience. And if you have anything else to add, Mr. Antocoli, to your appeal, you're welcome to add that now.
I'm very thankful that you went out and
Do you want to?
I'm thankful that you went out and reached and found the documents. I appreciate that. You didn't have to do that. But I also think that some things are off in the statements. You'll recall that during the water and sewer meetings, it was suggested that $7 million should be restricted for the water meters. That did not appear on the statement. So some of that, I assume, was drawn down because of work already that was completed. But that should be accounted for in the statements as part of the $34 million in fund reserves. I don't recall there being an actual vote on restricting those funds, but it was mentioned during the water and sewer rate setting meetings in each of the last two, this year and the year prior. So I don't know if you guys are going to do anything regarding that or not.
Are there any, I guess the key point is if there are any documents, are you wanting to continue your appeal? Are there other documents you claim that exist?
I
that you
think
haven't provided?
the only document remaining, because there were 6 shared regarding the actuary, the one for the pension trust, pension benefit trust was not included, but that was in the middle of the set of 6 documents from the previous year.
And that you're referring to the GASB report?
Yes.
Okay,
yes. So
that's a different
that's
FOIA,
a-
not the one we're
that's
talking
not
about
this
today.
one. And typically, the updated financials for the next year's actuarially determined contribution for that fund last year was released in June, the year before that, at beginning of June. So I'm not sure why that was delayed. I know everyone is busy with the elections, but it would be nice to have that
Okay.
if it's
So-
available on the township website.
Okay, so but on the FOIA.
The FOIA
specifically
request,
about
I
this one,
believe everything was sent to me by you, from the best of my knowledge, and I appreciate everything you did to follow up on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are you withdrawing the appeal on that issue at this point, or do you want the board to rule on it?
Well, the appeal was met while I understand you were out of town. So it went in on Thursday. I received a response late Thursday. So I'm assuming that you put this into the board packet ahead of time. I was surprised to see it on there. So, but does that make sense?
I guess what I'm hearing you say is you've received everything now, and
Yes, yes.
and And the appeal is moot at this point. You don't have any,
The appeal is mute, correct.
right.
And I think there was a timing issue based on when it was placed into the board packet and when I received the documents. But
Okay.
the point is mute. Thank you.
Great, okay, thanks. So I understand that at this point, the appeal's been withdrawn. We don't need to rule on it. I
Correct.
appreciate your cooperation in the matter, and
Yeah, and you went and found what I was asking for, and I appreciate that.
okay, thanks a lot, Mr. Antockley. Okay, so this item, I guess I would move to amend the agenda to remove item, well, no, actually, we've talked
I
about it.
would just
so,
note that it was
note
voluntary
that it was
withdrawn.
voluntarily withdrawn, the appeal. As was indicated, once we ascertained the nature of what was actually requested, we have provided those records. But based upon what was initially requested, we determined that the documents didn't exist because we couldn't connect them to an existing document in some way. But we figured it out because we worked together, and I'm glad that the matter has been resolved. So, thank you.
All right. And so unless there's any other questions, I'll move on to the next one.
I suppose
Yes.
it might be prudent for the board to consider a motion to accept the appellant's withdrawal of his appeal, voluntarily acknowledging the documents have been produced.
Be happy to make that motion.
Motion by trustee
Support.
Barnett, support by trustee Kalinsky. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That does pass. All right, so next we will go on to, no, that's okay. For some reason, I thought it was off of there too. So, consider the approval of the recommendation of the benefits and compensation study vendor. And I know you all are so excited we found the PowerPoint because we all love PowerPoint. But again, this has been almost a year process where we've been meeting to talk about possibly opening up contracts a little earlier because, we were all given these 6-year contracts and they're a little out of date, especially in a post-COVID world. So over the last year, the board has decided to move forward on this. You thankfully gave us ARPA funding abilities, so then we created a committee. So we'll go on to the next page. So yep, this basically, all of our contracts were completed before the actual information came back on our last benefit study. So we closed contracts, the previous administration closed contracts signed on March. We found out after, when we got some information back in June, that there were some that probably would have been in a different range. So we already knew there was a little issues, and then come COVID, the world completely changed. And obviously with inflation and other things going on, it is a little out of date. So the board then came together on November 13th and agreed to use ARPA funds to facilitate a study. This study is a little bit different in that instead of just the typical one, which is a lot easier to do, which is just compensation study and medical, which is what is very standard in the public sector, we're looking for the post-COVID world of how do you compete with the private sector, especially on those hard-to-fill positions in civil engineering. There's a lot of engineers. There are very few civil engineers. There's an assessing department issue. There's there's not a lot of kids that know about it unless you're born into that area. There's also building and planning. Not a lot of people go into that section. So this will help us kind of bring them from the public sector. So this is a very heavy benefits focused one. On May 21st, we went ahead and put out an RFP. This RFP was written by Sue Bolin, who is my administrative assistant, we've kind of changed that role as well because there are so many projects now that we're doing and everything. That is a more active position where she wrote it with all of the information I've collected over the last 2 years from union presidents, putting their input in there. Also, the HR benefits coordinator, Elizabeth, worked really closely with her on that, and then also the three of us doing some edits. But we had the department heads all weighed in. It was really interesting to see how some were in line, some were different, so we tried to include as much as we could. The union presidents were given a chance to edit it. So we had a lot of eyes. We had almost 17 pairs of eyes on this before it went out to RFP. So it went out on May 21st. We were hoping for 2 or 3 people, and we got 8. So we had 8 submissions on June 13th. Now you can jump to the next one. So I want to thank also the study section committee, selection committee was, since Noah is the president of the department head and he was involved on the strategic plan, we gave him a break and we took the vice president is Darren Kratz. He's the union vice president for department head, so he's also our director of assessing. We of course have Elizabeth Parrott, who's our HR and benefits administrator. Obviously her with the SHRM background would be the most important to have on there too. We have Katie Fotherby, who is our senior services office manager. She has worked for the township over 20 years, and she is the president of the general union. We also have Trustee Kalinsky was on it. Thank you. He understands both sides because he's both a firefighter and a township trustee. And then, of course, myself was on there. We ended up basically, can you go back real quick? So when you get 8 people, 5 of them were really good. We decided to invite the 5, and then it comes down to what's the most important. So you'll notice it's not just quality and experience. There was a huge variety of the number of comparable communities, anything from 3 all the way to 25. Some chose no in-person visits, some chose more. Employee engagement was a huge one for us because if you're not asking people what they want, you might be spending a lot of time focusing on something that's completely uninteresting to them. So the ones that we were really interested in did more employee engagement. And especially in addition to timeline and cost, the most important is understanding the benefit review. So if they are the #1 compensation study person, that's not who we needed. We needed somebody who post 2020 understands the different benefits that we're looking for. Sorry, go ahead. So these are the 8 that we had. Again, we didn't choose to invite 3 of them, based obviously mostly on cost because 2 of them are extremely higher than the rest. And then also with Riemann, that just had to do with some issues of, and you'll see on the other slides, but the other 5, the group was pretty evenly split on how we all fell on those 5. So we decided to do some Zoom interviews for them. So with HR, with Navigator HR, we were interested because it's a local feel, but they are a very small boutique firm. They only have 3 full-time employees. In addition, it takes a little longer for them because they only have the 3 employees. And of course, they were $100,000 more than the rest. So we did not choose to invite them. Siegel did our last one. So we felt that they were very focused on compensation study, which we had already gotten from them, in addition to the fact that they were much higher. HR had thought there were some issues with the people you meet with for many months are not the people who present. So there were some disconnects on that. And then with Riemann, although they are very large, they were $20,000 more. They were the longest, but they only offered 3 comparable communities. The bare minimum is usually 10 to really consider. So they did not want any employee engagement. So they missed out on some of our top needs. And then we went ahead and offered these 5 interviews. You can jump to the next. So with Gallagher, again, a lot of these were pretty even across, so we had to really get in with them. They are just outside of Chicago and Rolling Meadows. They are large. They have 52,000. There was a 10-member team. The problem is they also would not do, not just employee engagement, that some go much farther than just a survey. They would not conduct an employee survey, and although they do have a local presence here in Michigan, none of the people were going to be involved from Michigan, so it was either all virtual or we were paying to send people in, again, even though they have a location here. And of course, that one I think is one of the longest with a 26-week timeline. JERHR, headquartered in New York, large. Again, there's 65 employees. They were able to do 2 visits because we wanted the kickoff to be in person and we want the presentation at the end to be in person. Again, the problem is they had no employee engagement and they really didn't fully understand what we were looking for benefits-wise. They just kept mentioning the obvious medical, dental, vision. Not that we aren't offering those, but that's the bare minimum that people look for. So GovHR, and we have used them recently when we were looking for a planner, because like we mentioned, this was highly needed because when when you have to find a planner from out of state, all of our planners recently have been from out of state. They're returning to Michigan. So we just hired somebody from New York. Before that person was Colorado. So there are not a lot of people in Michigan going into urban planning. So that is a problem when you have to get a recruiter to find your entry level. So this will help a lot. The problem is that, again, they lack the benefits analysis. When we talked about it, they didn't have a lot of feel for that. And these are just going to be mine that we're going to go ahead and go into Chris, who probably has even more information to give. So you'll be next on that one, I promise. But yeah, they just were really good on compensation, but lacked the benefits. Then we had MAG, which is the Management Advisory Group International. They were one of our top two. So it came down really closely with MAG and with McGrath. So they are out of Virginia. They have 9 full-time employees, but I believe they do independent contractors a lot. They also have a lot of Michigan experience. You'll notice the counties, not just Oakland County, but Genesee, Grand Traverse, Oakland, Washtenaw County, and Canton Township. I'm in some COG events a lot with Amory Graham Hudak, who runs that, and they're using them right now, and they really like them. Also, they've done Dearborn and Southfield, so they know the area. They know them. They are willing to not only do a survey, but also do some interviews. So we want people to talk with the union presidents. And that was what we really said. They're not just the voice of 8, they're the voice of 300, or two if we're doing not part-time, like 260. So we wanted to have not just a survey, but union president interviews and department head interviews. So they have that experience. Sorry, almost. Can you go back? Sorry. So they do have that experience. The other big thing that they offer is providing software for the future. So although this one won't involve creating job descriptions, because we paid for that through Siegel just recently, and any upgrades have been done through the software they had given, this one provides software for the future. So let's say that a new classification that we've never used before shows up, you put it in their software and it creates these things for you so that you don't have to go back and pay for another study. And they're one of the fastest because they do this a lot. So 12 weeks is their timeline. Sorry, thank you. And the other top 2 finalists was McGrath. They're headquartered in Tennessee. They have 20 employees. They have a lot of public sector experience. They were willing to do the survey, not the interview so much, but they would do the survey. They had a lot of recent experience, and they also provided software. The big issue is they prefer virtual. They were willing to do some on-site meetings for that additional cost. We only needed 2, but they said up to 4, which we could go lower. The big issue between these two was with MAG, we loved our main person. So the group wasn't sure, but we loved Dr. Campbell, and we felt that we were really investing in Dr. Campbell. With this, we love Dr. McGrath. She would not be the one that would be coming here. She would not be the one involved. So to pay that extra cost and not get the one you most felt close to, we kind of felt that it wasn't worth paying that extra money, knowing that that wouldn't be who was actually here with us when we had such a connection with Dr. Campbell. And then there was a little bit longer. Next. So again, we knocked it down to those 2, and we went ahead and sent out, I think there's another push, yeah. So we went ahead, and for them, like I said, this was neck and neck. These are 2 wonderful, wonderful companies. We went ahead and sent out some more so that we can find out exactly who is. Put it in writing, who's on site, because if it wasn't Dr. Campbell and it wasn't Dr. McGrath, then we had to think about it. The level of engagement, would they offer just a survey, or would they do the in-person interviews that we want? And of course, the recent benefits. Next. And then Chris can tell you when he starts talking, it was literally neck and neck down to the wire. And what I felt from the group was, again, Dr. Campbell was who we loved. Dr. Campbell is who we were investing in. And that is we chose. Plus, I mean, granted, obviously they're also less expensive, plus, and they're faster. But we were willing to pay more and go a little slower if McGrath was better. But we all agreed that MAG was the best choice. discussion, I want to go ahead and let Trustee Kalinsky, you were in from the beginning, give some of your ideas on the different groups or why you were, because you were a big supporter of them as well.
Thank you very much. So all of the different groups and different consultants, we all had unique traits to them and what their specialties were. And when it came down to basically two kind of seemed to be the finalists, which was McGrath as well as MAG. And viewed them, it was personable. You liked what they had. The experience that they were providing to us was incredible. Both Dr. McGrath as well as Dr. Campbell. I liked Dr. Campbell because not only did we interview somebody who was going to be our point person, he was a person who was going to be here doing our employee surveys, our employee engagement, talk about classification, some of the issues that we're facing. We talked about some of the challenges that we're facing in the Metro Detroit area with employee retention and employee talent. And he knows that because he just did a survey in Southfield or Canton Township or Washtenaw County. So he already has some of the core data is for our area and understands some of the challenges we are facing. When we started asking about benefits and additional benefits, he rattled off 3 or 4 different ideas that people hadn't come up with yet, where we weren't prying, he was just offering these up in different solutions. So it became pretty clear that these were really good candidates and really good consultants, but obviously I liked MAG the most. Since we weren't able to get Dr. McGrath to be our point person, committee, we decided we wanted to go with MAG. Wanted to come in person, do the focus groups, so meeting employees, but any of the stakeholders to figure out what we need to do to get the best survey. And that was really important to me. And then again, while we talked about we were willing to pay more, this is also being very fiscally conscious, and it ended up being one of the cheaper bids that we got, which was always important. We're trying to be with the money that we're being provided. Again, I'm looking forward to it, ready to hit the ground.
And they also, MAG was willing to accept information from our unions. So in order to focus more on benefits, we had non-union members, meaning our chief of our fire chief and our assistant chief are not part of the fire union. So they did an study already of, I believe, 38 communities. MAG was willing to take their information of the medical, the benefits of the standard. So that saves time, that they were willing to accept that data. And then also the police chief and the police chief ended up doing the one for the police side as well. So now the would have been spent on getting data on public safety, just the compensation, opened up some time in MAG. Some of them weren't willing to take on people they don't know. I think because they do have a lot of data from Michigan and they trusted the public safety, they went ahead and added that. That went a long way for me too, because now they can really focus on the benefit side too.
Yeah, and again, because he has compensation specifically in areas of Canton Township and Dearborn, he's able to even gut check the information that we have. Doesn't appear to be biased, and he gets to vet the data. So again, it hopefully get a little bit of the stress on some of our staff. It is a big project and a big undertaking to take on in the 12 weeks we want to do. But again, if we want to be able to get the best employees and understand the compensation and benefits we need to offer in these upcoming contracts, we need to be able to give the board this information to make those best decisions. It's really important for us to do that.
And if you guys are wondering which ones for what they did, what they decided was not just to do the typical comparable, but also who is part of Oakway, which are the 11 now, I think, groups that are together that we share with. So you're around them a lot, so it's somebody that could poach for you. Also, who have we lost to last 6 to 8 years? And we're known as the gold standards, where we may not have lost someone to them yet, but they are forward thinking. They're already out there ahead of the game of 20. So that's why there's so many, because 38 is a lot. But that's why there's 3 different divisions that they were kind of looking at. Same with, they did the same way with Oak Tech and with some places where they've lost. This huge who we're competing against. So does anyone have any questions or comments about the process or?
No, I thank you for the due diligence on this. Certainly looks like you've made the right decision in your recommendation. I would have done the same thing based on the facts and based on the data that you presented. So I think it's this.
And I love that they are focused on having the union involvement. That goes a long way.
Yeah, your presentation was very detailed, and well, it was, and it gave us that depth yeah, and this was in for this reason. So yeah, it sounds like you guys did a really good job. Thank you.
And I apologize that it took longer than probably some wanted, but we wanted, like I said, if I just wrote this myself and we didn't have somebody involved from the union side, it wouldn't have been as in-depth as what we created. And that's why I stepped away and decided not to write it myself. And I started with a union employee. And then it went from there. But having almost 20 eyes, I believe it was 17 different eyes on this, I myself could not have created such a P. This was created from knowledge across the board. So I also thank you for the grace you gave to make sure that we got the right information out there. And I appreciate the time you gave me to get this done. So if anyone's interested, there's a motion up there if anybody would like to offer up a motion.
Make a motion that we approve for the foundation study.
Support.
Presented.
Motion by trustee Murray and support by trustee Barnes. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Great. So I know they're watching, but we'll also make the call tomorrow morning to get it. So thank you so much, everybody. Next, we have payroll and vouchers for 22nd. Unless there's any changes, I'd look for a motion.
So moved.
Motion by trustee Kalinsky.
Support.
Support by trustee Faki. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion to adjourn.
Do you want to maybe mention the time of the next?
Oh, yes, and just a reminder, for August 12th, that is going to be at 6 o'clock and because it's going to be a long one. So part of our strategic plan, which by the way, they have been blown away by the engagement of this community. I want to thank the community. We have had the largest size community. We have had the largest engagement in person since 2020. The only person who beat us across the board, they were a community of 250,000. So our largest meeting was 50 people and they had 80 at one. But overall, we had 50 people at one, we had 20 at another, and we had 30 at our last one, plus all of the engagement on the idea wall. So the next time that we're all going to get together is August 12th, and it's going to be, so they had information sessions for the public to be interactive. This will be the chance for the board to be interactive. So it's a study session, but knowing it's going to be about 4 hours, we decided to roll it into the meeting as well, instead of doing a 6-hour kind of night. So it'll start at 6 o'clock. There will be the normal public comment beforehand, so anybody can do that. But once this starts, the only thing on the agenda that day will be the interactive group with us to get some information from them and ideas from all of you.
Great.
Sound good? Thank you for the reminder. I appreciate it.
No problem. And so with that, I move we adjourn.
Great. Motion by Clerk Brook,
Support.
support by Treasurer Schostak. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. See you in a couple weeks.